I truly love the smell of hand sanitizer in the morning. This is the end, my only friend, the end of everything.
Stop it, Jonathan, you're making everything worse.
I always like to pretend that I'm badly misunderstood, especially by the women in my life, such as my wife Corinna, my stepdaughters Olivia and Shosh, my granddaughter Evelyn, and Charlotte, who co-presents the show with me. But I'm afraid it's not true. All of them understand me perfectly, even Evelyn, and she's only 5 years old.
Granddad, you're being silly!
It's undeniable that we are all, everyone on the face of this planet, living through some particularly difficult and unusual times at the moment. But even despite the threat which we all face from the coronavirus and its attendant disease COVID-19, my family, who are after all the people who put this show together each month, are having a particularly difficult time. Last Thursday, Corinna was admitted to hospital again for another operation, and she has been admitted again twice since. And it's only Wednesday. I will buzz you a messenger when we get home. Good luck, darling girl, and hopefully I'll see you tomorrow.
Yes. All goes well, yes. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, darling. And the same day, half an hour later, I had an appointment at another hospital 9 miles away. Once again, I have managed to injure my feet, and being a diabetic, such injuries are taken very seriously by the authorities, if not by me.
Okay. Well, good luck.
Okay, buddy, I'll be back in half an hour or so. I don't want to bellyache about it, but both Corinna and I are in almost continual pain of one sort or another. And so it turns out we're not in the highest risk category, but we're in a high risk category as far as the coronavirus is concerned. Now, as regular viewers will know, I don't make a habit of doing what the government tells me to do. But on this occasion, it seems like jolly good advice. So Corinna and I are placing ourselves in as much isolation as we can. And I'm afraid that means that we won't be seeing Charlotte until this whole horrible episode is done and dusted. However, we have various bits that we recorded with Charlotte over the last weeks and months. And we also have the wonders of modern technology, which means that we can converse with each other over the internet using the magic of Facebook Messenger and Skype and all sorts of other things. And because we're even more big and clever, we can record both the audio and the video of these conversations and interactions. And so I'm very happy to announce that although Glastonbury may be cancelled, EastEnders may be cancelled, and the Eurovision Song Contest may be cancelled, but On the Track is going to continue. It will be under heavy manners, as Prince Farai said, but it will continue. It may not be exactly the same as it has been, in fact I can pretty well guarantee that it won't, but what we can say is that we are going to carry on doing our best to make it as entertaining, as informative, as scientific and as silly as ever. Enjoy. So Charlotte, do you know what a muntjac is?
It's a small species of deer, isn't it?
Yep, or it's a it's a family of small deer, and there are two species that are found in Britain. They're not originally from Britain, but they were introduced into Britain in the end of the 19th century. And last week, when Corinna and Josh and Olivia and my darling granddaughter Evelyn were on holiday in Centre Parks, they saw and made friends with what I think is an Indian muntjac, and they filmed it. And do you know the other name for a muntjac?
No.
Well, it's funny because I tried to tell this to Evelyn and she thought I was being silly. I don't know why she would ever think that her dear old grandfather would be silly, but they barked like a dog, and she didn't believe me. They're called barking deer.
Right.
And I tried to explain this to her, that you had a deer that was barking. She's going, "Grandad, you're silly. Deer don't bark. Doggies bark," and she wouldn't believe me. But when I was a boy in Hong Kong, this is a weird little story. In Hong Kong, when I was a boy, in fact in Hong Kong now, there are wild muntjac, and because it's southern China. But for years and years and years, it was always thought that they were the Reeves muntjac, which is the normal Chinese species of muntjac. And then, something like 10 years ago, it was discovered that at least some of them are Indian red muntjac, like this one from Centre Parks, and now nobody knows what they are. There are Indian red muntjac there, and there are presumably Chinese Reeves muntjacs there, which are called, do you remember the pheasant we had?
Yes.
That was a Reeves pheasant, they were both named by the same guy. And so there are presumably, or there have been Reeves muntjac there. There are certainly Indian muntjac there, but what are the rest of them? Are they a hybrid between the two? Are they one? Are they the other? Or are they neither? Nobody seems to know. And that's just one of those tiny little cryptozoological things that's always intrigued me. But I'll tell you what.
What?
Did you know there were muntjac in Wolseley?
What?
Exactly. There have been sightings on the south side of Wolseley, you know the road between here and Bradworthy, and it goes through a little hamlet called Stroxworthy.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something else that's weird about Stroxworthy. Stroxworthy is a tiny little group of about 4 cottages and a farm. There might be 2 farms, it's tiny.
Yeah.
It was bombed during the war.
Okay.
Do you know why it was bombed during the war? Because a German bomber that had flown to Bristol to bomb Bristol got lost on the way back, and the people in Stroxworthy, thinking because they were a tiny farm in the middle of nowhere, didn't have a blackout, and the German bomber saw these lights and dropped a bomb on it, because the German bomber still had lights, and the Stroxworthy people were naughty and left the blackout off. So it's why it's the only part of Wolseley that actually had damage during the war from enemy fire. But anyway, there are sightings, there have been a lot of sightings recently from the Stroxworthy, between Stroxworthy and Bradworthy, of what appeared to be either very, very, very small roe deer or muntjac. And a couple of years ago, an old friend of my dad's brought me a skull that he'd found on his farm, which he thought was a muntjac, because he'd seen muntjac. But nobody's actually managed to photograph one, or shoot one, or roadkill one, or anything. He brought me a skull of what he thought was a muntjac, and it isn't. It's an immature male roe deer. But it's again one of those other little things that has always intrigued me. And it's like the sightings of... You're yawning already. What time did you get to sleep last night?
I've already told you I'm not saying it again.
What, by 4 in the morning or something?
No, it was earlier than that.
Really, young folks today. They spend the night partying.
I was reading, but okay.
I know. Now I got completely sidetracked.
You're talking
because
about
I was,
the guy with the Muntjac.
the Muntjac skull. It wasn't the Muntjac, it was a roe deer skull. But it's in the same way as there are occasional sightings of wild boar around here. Both Muntjac and wild boar are animals which are moving into the area.
Right.
And you know something else that I've always found, when I was your age, something I've always found really interesting, when I was your age I always thought that if you lived in an area with a certain amount of animals, XYZ species, that unless they died out they'd always be there, they'd stay the same. But the mammals and the insects, but the mammals in particular around here have changed massively. Because when I lived here, when I was your age, it was 4 years ago. 43 years ago to be exact. But when I lived here as a boy, there were fallow deer. There was a little herd of fallow deer that lived in the woods down there below the garden, below the end of the garden. I haven't seen fallow deer here for years. There were roe deer and there were fallow deer, but the fallow deer have disappeared. But the red deer, there were never any red deer here, but there are now quite a lot. Do you know why?
Food?
Sort of, but what would you do if I told you it was down to Paul McCartney?
What?
Yeah. Paul McCartney, you know who Paul McCartney is?
Yeah.
Paul McCartney's wife of 30 years, Linda McCartney, who you probably know because of the sausages and the frozen food, she died of cancer in the late 1998, 1999, something like that. But she was very much an animal rights activist and she was a vegetarian activist, but animal rights activist, and she and Paul McCartney, she and Sir Paul, bought large chunks of Exmoor, and this was when deer hunting was still legal. They bought large chunks of Exmoor so the Exmoor stag hounds wouldn't be able to hunt there. And so the population pressures, so because of Paul McCartney and his first wife, there were so many deer, especially there were so many young stags in particular on Exmoor, that the population spread westwards. And we're only, 25 miles from Exmoor. So that's why because of an ex-beetle and his vegetarian wife, why we now have red deer here, and I don't know about you, but it's these little stories like that that keep me awake during the day. For the last few years, our old friend and colleague Glenn Vaudrey has been promoting Weird Weekend North, which in many ways takes over the baton from the Weird Weekend down here that we promoted every year from 2000 to 2016. But I'm afraid a few weeks ago he had some very bad news for everybody. Why did you cancel the Weird Weekend?
Weird Weekend North was cancelled due to coronavirus just ahead of government information.
Well, I'm very glad to hear you didn't do it after the government information. I would hate anybody with anything to do with the CSZ to do what the government told them.
Just simply people started to panic. And once people start panicking, I was only going to get people in with the offer of a free toilet roll.
But I believe you've got good news for us now.
We have indeed got good news. Weird Weekend North will return Later in the year, on the 12th and 13th of September 2020, at a new venue, Earling Steel Club.
And what's the lineup?
The lineup will be exactly the same as the April Weird Weekend was going to be, possibly one speaker less. We have the following speakers lined up for Weird Weekend North in September. We have Bob Fisher on the Haunted Generation, Steve Jones, The Small World of Coincidences, Carl Marshall on the British Big Cats, Andy Voss, The Ghosts of Durham, Rob Gandy on the Ancient Spectre, Richard Freeman on Hunting the Yeti in India, Glenn Vaudrey on the Sea Serpents of Scotland, with possibly some more to be announced later.
Well, that's really exciting. So, how can people get tickets if they haven't already got tickets?
If you go to the Weird Weekend North website, you can find us online, you can find us on Facebook, or you can find me, or even find us by the CFZ.
That's fantastic. Well done, Glenn. I'm glad that we've managed to, or rather that you've managed to snatch victory from the jaws of defeat. And I look forward to hearing all about it later in the year. Thanks, mate.
Thanks, John. It's great, and it's great to be bringing Weird Weekend North back.
So you see, it's not all doom and gloom here at the Centre for Fortean Zoology, and I do have some more good news for you. Finally, the 2020 Yearbook is available, edited by me, Richard Muirhead, and my lovely wife Corinna. What's in it, you may ask? This volume, which was originally supposed to be out in November or early December, but with Mother's death and Corinna's various illnesses and hospital stays, that couldn't be done. But it contains the following articles. Yowies at Kempsey in Australia by Mike Hardcastle. Black Dog Law in German-speaking countries by Lois Moderman. The Thing on Your Doorstep, Monsters in Your Backyard by Richard Freeman. The Zulu Maru Carcass is Coming to Get You by Scott Mardis. Caught on the Hop by Phantom Kangaroos and Other Out-of-Place Mystery Macropods by Dr. Carl P.N. Schuker. The Black Woodpecker, a British ornithological cryptid by Richard George. The Mystery Animals of Greater Manchester, an excerpt by Liz Biliatica-Meary and Richard Muirhead. Leviathan and the Wrong Whale by Carl Marshall. A Lake with 3 or More Types of Monsters by Ulrich Magin. Index of Flying Snakes, number 1 to 5 by Richard Muirhead. A Directory of Dwarves by Colin Schneider. The Bristol Crocodile by Bob Skinner. And About the CFZ by me. Well, I don't want to come over like a breadhead, so to prove I'm not a breadhead, and that we are, of course, the acceptable face of capitalism, you can buy a copy of this magnificent book for yourselves at a discounted price of 12 quid if you go to this link here.
If you want to support us and help us make more content like these, please press like, subscribe, follow our Facebook page and check out our Patreon.
Everyone, just popping in to say thank you for watching this month's episode of On The Track. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something new or found something interesting or entertaining. Obviously, these next few episodes are going to be a bit different for, I would hope, obvious reasons, but we hope to take advantage of these remote recording as I will not be going over to John's for the next few months. So I hope you'll stay with us, and I hope the episodes will still be enjoyable and fun to watch. So hope to see you next month. Goodbye!
Well, my friends, that's about it for this issue. I'd like to say a big thank you to everybody who's gone over and above the call of duty to be able to make this episode a reality. I want to say a big thank you to Charlotte, and yes, we'll be having more remote stuff from her in the next episode. I'm not sure how the episodes are going to work until this crisis is over, but be sure that there will be episodes for as long as we are able to broadcast them. So, although I have no idea what's happening next, that just puts me in line with nearly all of the rest of the human race. And so, until next time, be seeing you. Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's me again. Over the last few months you've probably noticed that On the Track has changed. Well, there's a very good reason for that. The thing is that between 2000 and 2017, that's 17 years for those of you who can't count, I was the main promoter of an annual event called The Weird Weekend. And it was a conference aimed at, about and for people from the Centre for Fortean Zoology. And although it wasn't all about cryptozoology, it was all full of events and lectures and film shows and exhibitions on subjects which I thought that people from the Centre for Fortean Zoology would be interested in. And it was all wrapped up in a nice overcoat of surreal fun. And you know what? I miss it terribly, which is why about 6 months ago I decided that I was going to rebrand On the Track. I thought we'd do a monthly episode of about half an hour, and then in between each episode we do what I call On the Track Extra, which resurrects somewhat of the feel of the old Weird Weekend. And have a look at these 2 examples which I chose almost at random because I thought that you might enjoy them.